Yo everybody, what's up? This is 8-Bit Flashback, and I finally got my Nintendo 64 OGST gaming console, and today I'm going to be doing a review, build, and test. So let's check this out. So here's a comparison of the OGST gaming console next to the official Nintendo 64, and as you can see, this is not an identical mini clone. But it's obviously heavily inspired by the Nintendo 64 because it does look similar. And as far as the size of this console, it is quite a bit smaller, but the height is exactly the same. The original Nintendo 64, if you're looking at the front of it, was 10.25 wide, 7.5 deep, and 2.5 inches high. And the OGST console is 6.5 wide by 4.75 deep and 2.5 high. So now I'm going to show you how to build the console, and here's a look at what you get inside the box. So here's a look at the bottom shell of the case right here, the top shell, the LCD board with USB ports, the cable that connects that board to your Odroid XU4, also some rubber feet to keep it from sliding, some controller port covers, some screws, a USB adapter cable, and a USB portable hard drive cable. And to complete this build, you will need an Odroid XU4 board or the XU4Q. And I prefer this one because it does have that built-in fan to push that heat away, and this fan's nice and quiet. I have messed with some other consoles with the built-in fans, and they can get pretty loud and annoying, but this one doesn't bother me. You're also going to need a power adapter. This one's 5 volt 4 amps, but depending on what type of portable hard drive you're using, you might have to get the 5 volt 6 amp model. And here's an up-close look at the shell. And as far as the thickness of the plastic goes, it's pretty thin. I wish that plastic was just a little bit thicker. It does have a textured finish on the top here, but on the sides it's kind of a shiny finish. I wish it had that textured finish all the way around. And it's also a little bit transparent. It does have some built-in power buttons, but I really wouldn't call these buttons. I'd call these more of a cutout or just a tab that allows you to push a button that's on that LCD board. So to start putting this case together, we're going to start with the LCD board, and that's going to attach to the top part of the case. And there's going to be a couple of slots that's going to slide into. And it is kind of a tight fit. Just be gentle with it and make sure it's lined up properly, and it'll push right into place. Now it's time to install the Odroid XU4, but before we do that, I'd recommend that you get your OGST image pre-flashed to your memory card and get everything set up and configured before we put this inside the case. And also, if you're using a micro SD card, there's a switch that's located on the side of the board right here, and you want to make sure that's in SD mode. And for your software and setup installation, I'll make sure to leave a link to this guide right here. This is a nice step-by-step guide. And located inside the setup guide is going to be a link to the Odroid Game Station image, which is what we want to use to get this LCD screen working. This is called the Odroid Game Station Turbo. And if you scroll down on this page, you will find a download link, and I think it's right around 2.5 gigabytes, and after you extract it, I think it's about 4 gigabytes. And you can also find the same image on Arcade Punks labeled as Odroid Game Station Turbo. And there is a couple different images that are available for download at Arcade Punks, and they will function with the XU4 board, but they will not function with the LCD screen. So if you want that LCD screen support, you're going to have to use that OGST image. The ORA, or the Odroid Retro Arena image that's located on this page, is a very clean image, and it works very well with Nintendo 64 games. And they are currently working on a solution to get this LCD screen working with their image, and I'll keep you updated as soon as that happens. Okay, let's head back to the step-by-step setup guide, and you're going to reach a point when you're setting up the software on the Odroid board, and it's going to ask you to activate the console kit support, which is going to be that LCD screen. And on the same page, you can also change which front-end loader you want to use. And for this, you have 3 options: the XBMC, which is an add-on for Kodi, Emulation Station, or Attract Mode. And for this, I'd highly recommend using Emulation Station because it's much more user-friendly and a lot less issues in my opinion. Okay, now that I got all the software installed and configured, it's time to finish putting the console together. So the cable has a notch on it, so it can only go on one way. So we're going to go ahead and attach it to the Odroid board right here. And then the other end of this is going to attach to the LCD board located right here. So the Odroid board is going to go in bottom up. Then we're going to attach that cable. And both sides of that cable have a notch on it, so it can only go in one direction. So there's a look at it all plugged in. Now I'm going to attach the USB adapter cable, and that's going to give me power to the 4 front USB ports. So that's going to plug into the lower USB port on the Odroid board, and then the other end's going to plug into that LCD board right here. And here's a closer look. Now it's time to secure the Odroid board to the case, and we're going to be using 4 screws to do that, 1 in each corner. So it should look like this after it's secured. Now it's time to install your portable hard drive if you have one. So one end of the cable is going to plug into the hard drive, the other end is going to plug into that upper USB port, and there should be plenty of room to fit this inside the case. But I would recommend, if you're going to use one of these, to get some Velcro or something to keep this situated, otherwise this is just going to slide back and forth. But for this video, I'm not going to be using a hard drive, I'm just going to be using my micro SD card, which is a 64GB, so it's got plenty of room on it. So the bottom of the case has a couple notches on it that'll line up with the top of the case. So you're going to line those up first, and then press it together. After you get that case pressed together with no visible gaps, you're going to use these controller port covers, and these are actually what keep that case secured closed. A very simplistic design, but it works. Now it's time to attach the rubber feet, and on the bottom of the console there's going to be 4 different circles, and that's right where the feet go. And these feet will keep that console from sliding around. So the assembly of the console is pretty easy. You can probably do this in under 5 minutes. The hard part is getting all the software and everything configured properly. And if you're not familiar with the OGST gaming image, it's definitely a learning curve to figure out how to use it. It uses a Debian operating system, and this is my first time using it, so I've got quite a bit to learn still. The Odroid Retro Arena image that I was talking about earlier uses a RetroPie build, so it's a lot more user-friendly and customizable. So as soon as I get an image up and running for this console, I'm definitely going to be trying it out. Well, here it is. My build is complete, and I've got that LCD screen up and running. And how this works is every time you boot a game for a specific system, some logo animation plays for that system. So I'll go ahead and demo some of the logo animation that's available. Here's for the Atari 2600. Here's for the Game Boy. For the original NES. For the Dreamcast. This is probably one of my favorite boot up animations. Here is the Sega Genesis. Here is the 32X. And this actually cycles through a couple different Sega logos. And here is the Sega CD and the Super Nintendo. And there is a few more, I just want to demo a couple of them for you. So the power button is functional and the other button is programmable. So I got mine programmed to where it automatically loads the emulation station for my front end loader. And remember, if you don't change that, it's going to load up the Kodi XBMC. And I did mess around with the XBMC a little bit, but I was having a lot of issues with games not showing up, so I just decided to go with the emulation station. For a controller, you can use the GameSir, which is the recommended controller on their website. Personally, I used a PS3 wired Afterglow controller, and that seemed to work really well. I also bought this cheap USB N64 controller on eBay for like $8, but it does not work for Nintendo 64 games. It does not have a true analog stick, so I have no steering control. But this does work for other systems like the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. So there's quite a few emulators that are available to play, like Nintendo, Dreamcast, which plays pretty well, Sega Genesis, 32X, Sega CD, Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, Atari 2600, Game Boy, and of course Nintendo 64. And there's plenty of other emulators that are available, but today we're just going to concentrate on Nintendo 64. And I've got a pretty big collection of 64 games on here, about 350 of them, with artwork. Now as far as the gameplay goes, most of the games seem to play pretty well. I do have some issues with some of the video cutscenes. I'll get some stutter once in a while, but it doesn't happen all the time. Most of the games seem to run close to full speed, with some occasional choppiness here and there. I personally tested about 75 different games, and I only had issues with 3 games. Indiana Jones and the Inferno Machine, I could not get that game to load at all. Pokemon Stadium, the game loaded but it crashed on me. And then Transformers Beast Wars, that game seems to be really choppy and unplayable. The rest of the games were definitely playable, with a couple small issues here and there, but I'd say that's a pretty good average overall. So a couple other things I'd recommend, especially if you're using the OGST gaming image, is a mouse and a keyboard. So we'll go ahead and quit Emulation Station, and we're going to head to the desktop. So we'll go down to Quit, and this would be the desktop environment. And it's really hard to navigate unless you have a mouse and a keyboard. It makes things a lot easier. So on the desktop here, we can access various different applications. We can also access the computer files, so we can add ROMs from a USB if we wanted to. Also, your settings are located on this page for the Odroid GameStation Turbo. And when you click on this, you can change various different settings, like changing that front-end loader to the emulation station. And if it asks for a password, the password is Odroid. You can also access the Kodi XBMC by clicking on it right here. And if you don't change the front-end loader, this is normally how it's going to boot up. It's going to boot up to the Kodi screen. And a quick tip for you, if you're inside the Kodi application and you want to exit to the desktop, push Control, Alt, and K at the same time, and that'll take you back to the desktop. So overall, here's my thoughts on the console. Is it worth 24 bucks? Yes, I would say it is. It definitely could have some improvements, but overall, I think it's a good little case. Alright everyone, it is time for me to go. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. If you liked that video, please click that like button. If you want to hear more from me, please subscribe. And if you want to help support the channel, you can now find me on Facebook and Patreon. And if you want to continue watching, I got various different gameplay from multiple different games, so you can judge the emulation yourself. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.
There's the breach across the street. I need to get there.
It's me, Mario. Let's start to play.
Get back here! Slippy, watch out! Don't be on your tail!
Whoa! Help me! Thanks, Fox. I thought they had me.
We're entering Corneria City now. 3, 2, 1, go!
Round 1, fight!
What?